Hi there, I'm Nu-Trix, and today I'm happy. There is a new synthesizer that is part of the V Collection 11 from Arturia, the Jup-8000 V. It's a recreation of the JP-8000. I have a special relationship with the JP-8000. I worked in a music production school for 25 years, and if I'm not mistaken, in 98, we wanted to have a bigger lab for synthesis. The synthesizer we decided to go with was the JP-8000. And when later on we switched to another synthesizer, I bought one of the used JP-8000, which I owned after that for, I don't know, another 10 years. So I know this synthesizer inside out. I did teach it for at least 12 years. It's blue. It looks really cool. It's a lot different when you think about when it came out, because it was a moment in the 90s when digital sampling and ROM-based sampler playback synthesizer were the mainstream. So this was, I think, if I'm not mistaken, the first virtual analog commercially sold synthesizer from Roland, and it was a hit. It did stuff that you expected out of analog synthesizers, but in a digital way, and combining them in a way that you could have all of them into one single synthesizer, which was not often the case in different analog synthesizers. And on top of that, it gave you controls that did not exist in the real analog world. So, and I'll show you what I mean by this, because it's really, really cool. It's a perfect synthesizer for somebody who's starting, because everything is simple and ready to go, because everything is one knob job. You know, it's there. And on top of that, it has all the extra little things that you find in deeper synthesizer, like cross modulation, like Supersaw, sync, ring modulation. It's all there also. So you can do deeper stuff, still stay in the world of analog sounding subtractive synthesizer. This is going to be a video about what's special about the Jup-8000 V. So what's special about the JP-8000 and what is different between the original and this one, the virtual one. If you want to have a deeper tour of all the features, I made a video 4 years ago on the JP-8000, the hardware, the real one. Go check that other video. The link's below in the description. It looks like the original. Not exactly. Doesn't really matter. Let's look at what we have here, what makes the JP-8000 so cool, and what is missing out of, or not missing, but different from the virtual one. Okay, so first of all, what's cool about this synthesizer is the fact that you have Oscillator 1 and 2, 2 being traditional, meaning we have a pulse, we have a sawtooth, and we have a triangular waveform, and they do what they're supposed to be doing. They sound good, and they do analog sounding for this. The Oscillator 1 has a different option. You have a choice of different type of shapes, and all these shapes have been thought of by Roland to be more than one oscillator. They're doing stuff that we don't see often. Supersaw is the best example. Supersaw, every time we hear about Supersaw, it comes from the JP-8000. It was a brilliant way to make it sound like big synthesizer, polyphonic synthesizer. When you put 5, 8 notes into unison mode, and then you detune all of them, you would have a huge sawtooth, but actually you would have 7, 6, 8 different sawtooth playing at the same time. So you would just have a massive sound. So this would be something that you would do on analog polysynth, but like Prophet 5, for example, or even the Jupiter 8 would do that also. So the Supersaw, instead of using the whole synthesizer to be switched into unison mode, you could just use one oscillator. But this one is not one oscillator. It's actually, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 different oscillators. You have many of them. And what you do, I'm going to take a, can I have a default sound? That's the default. Okay. So, that's your oscillator 1. You see, oscillator 1 mix here. You only hear this one. You can change the pitch, of course, and the coarse tuning. So and you go detune, you don't hear anything because right now you're hearing only one sawtooth. When you bring that up, you hear more of the other ones. It's not that different because they're all at the same pitch. If you start detuning them, so you already have this massive sound with only one oscillator. Of course, you could go here and say, I want to also hear oscillator 2. I'm going to put also a sawtooth, and then you have one more. And you could say, well, this one's going to be actually... So that's the first thing. The fact that you have this control here of the Supersaw, that was something that you did not have before. And even still today, most synthesizers, when we talk about Supersaw, we always compare it to the JP-8000 because it was the first time that it was done in such a manner. And then people said, it sounded good. I like it. And it's part of the sound of the dance music of the 90s. It's just in the early 2000s. It's just... the Supersaw sound. Now, on top of that, they added stuff like the feedback oscillator. Now, this is a weird one, and it's the fun one if you like feedback, distortion, guitar sound, because you have a sound that is simply a sawtooth again. When you bring this one up, you go, it doesn't change anything. No, because you need to have feedback. So feedback, you're taking some of the sound, sending it back into the oscillator, and then you have a feedback coming in. Okay, but what you can do, you can change the harmonics. This very wide range of frequency and sound you can make here. But remember that the original JP-8000, you had a motion control. You could record motion of knobs and faders in real time. And when you play, this would move by itself. So you could come in and say, this, I'll move it. We can do it here, but we don't have the motion control on the synth itself. You need to go into the advanced window. You would have the option of, say, I don't know, function here. I want it to be slower. And this is going to control the harmonics here. I'm going to bring that in. And if I move it here, you see the movement line here? If I play it now. You can have still that motion that you had on the original JP-8000, but in a different way, because now it's using the Arturia modulators, could be a function. I mean, there's a lot. Modulation options here can be used to control any of the knobs and faders here. So this replaces the original motion control that you had. You know that if you're going into a square wave, you have a choice of pulse width. So, and you can use the LFO to control it. So you don't need, in that case, to go back into the advanced mode here of this and say, for this one, I'd put at 0 for now. So now the movement you have is coming from the LFO. Actually, this one here. Now, this is normal. This pulse width modulation is something we have in every square oscillators, analog ones. But now, if you switch to triangular mod, for example, this is not something that usually you can change. The triangular is triangular. If you can change the shape here to a different shape, so it's the triangular mod with a shape variation. So kind of a pulse width modulation, but for triangular. So what it gives you is, again, movement, sound, evolution in the sound. So it gives you a lot of movement and natural sounding changes, because one of the things that makes analog synthesizer sound organic is the fact that they're not always exactly at the same place and the sound is always kind of changing. But having an LFO straight into changing the shape of the triangular in the 90s, that was totally different and new, because it's something you did not do often in an analog synth. I'm not even sure they could do this, but in digital, now it was possible. So you have this for even the sawtooth. Change the sawtooth shape. You had for triangular, square, of course, and triangular. This one is a different triangular shaped. So right off the bat, the Oscillator 1 was totally different in the way you could do stuff. And it changes the way that people see how to make synthesizer after that, because a lot of people went, well, why limit yourself into only mimicking the original analog stuff? Because the JP was trying to mimic analog circuitry, but open up also and say, well, now it's digital. Let's give it more control, more options. So this is the first commercial synth that really made it into people's mind that this is possible. If we go back to sawtooth here and let's say square here, and we would go between the two, we have two oscillators playing. Now the next option that is one of the key feature of the Jup-8000 is the sync and the ring and the cross mod. Now the sync, you understand that the sync makes the Oscillator 2 re-trigger, so it's in sync with the first one. So you go, well, this is fun, but how is it fun? Well, it's fun when you add the pitch envelope. This is the AD, attack and decay envelope for the pitch. So if I turn this off, if I bring that up, so now it affects Oscillator 1 and 2. Let's just send it to 2, so only this one changes, and then we put sync, so this one is in sync, so it's synced to the first one, but this is changing the pitch. So the massive sync sound. So this is why this is really cool. This sounds really nice. You put it in ring. Do something about the same, not the same sound, but ring. Then I think it's the first one, the Oscillator 1, that is ring. No, it's the second one also that goes. Has these weird stuff happening. So you have the ring, you have the sync, and you have the cross mod. Now the cross modulation, if I go back to the envelope being... Cross modulation is basically FM, if you want. It's one oscillator modifying the second one modify the first one. So the pitch. Slow and fast. If I only listen to the first one, like to use this to create this kind of an aggressive tone. Say this one. But I don't want it all the time. So what you do now, you go back to the common section here and you say, well, cross modulation. So now my envelope is basically going to go. Has that nasty aggressive sound, and it actually comes from the fact that Oscillator 2 is cross-modulating Oscillator 1, but only following the attack decay shape that is short, and it gives you that kind of timbre change at the beginning, but I'm not even using the filter. It's totally open, so it's not the filter doing the thing. It's actually just the cross-modulation going like real FM you would do. You would actually have your carrier being modified by the modulator. I like this. It's a different type of aggressive sound. This is pretty cool. The rest is basic stuff that you understand. You have LFO, get filter, low pass, band pass, high pass, 12, 24 dBs, envelope, LFO, key follow, panning. You can pan this with an LFO. You've got velocity for the amplitude, LFO if you want to do a tremolo. So this is the ADSR for the volume. You have tone, bass, and treble. What's different here, you had a ribbon controller. Now the ribbon controller was weird because half of it was aftertouch, the other half was a controller. It's kind of weird because aftertouch is usually aimed for the keyboard. So in the case of the virtual Jup-8000, if you open the advance, you have the option of really using aftertouch to the right thing. So if you want to say aftertouches to the cutoff frequency, and I'm turning this off. So you have the real control. And there was also a great arpeggiator in the JP-8000. Now you have the Multi-Arp arpeggiator. So this is way more powerful. Honestly, you go. So you've got 4 arpeggiators. Let's say we're going to pick so that's for the first arpeggiator. Second one. You have transgate, chorus, delay, reverb. It's not the same choices of effects that the original had, but the transgate is really interesting. You have also a chorus. So these are the effects that are on the panel itself, and you have access to effects here. A lot more effects the original synthesizer had, because this is the stuff that Arturia is offering in all the new plugins inside the V Collection 11. So you've got a lot of things. The transgate that we just had access here. If I change to unison, it becomes super unison here. If I click to chorus, change to chorus. If I change this one here to delay, now this one becomes delay. And if I change this to, I don't know, bit crusher, it becomes bit crusher. So the quick access here is really fun. But when you get here, you've got access to everything that you want to really control the sound of the effect. And if you want to change them, you can also change the order, and the front panel will switch and follow it. So this is really cool because you have access to a lot more controls effect-wise. I mean, the effects, it's a wider range of choices of effects, and each of them you have more control into going into making it sound the way you want. On top of that, at the bottom, you've got polyphonic it goes way higher than 8. You get 12 and 16. Of course, CPU goes with that. But the original JP-8000 was 8. And remember that the original JP-8000 was actually also using a layer mode. So you could split it into 2 keys and split, say, I want to reserve 2 voices for the bass and 6 for the upper section and play a lead. So you would have bass and lead. If you want to play the Jup-8000 with this mode, it's not possible. This one doesn't have a split. It's just one. But I mean, it's easy to have a lot of keyboards and just split into 2 keyboards and load 2 Jup-8000 and right away you can play them. Actually, I'm going to have a demo soon of another software that makes you doing layers and split. And then you can use any synthesizer to do that. That's it. So if you're into the classic 90s, early 2000s sound of dance electronic and just having a little bit of a different synthesizer with the Supersaw and the harmonic feedback, which is really cool, revived in a plugin with much more options, effects, multi-arp, functions, modulation, all that stuff, you have to check out the V Collection 11 of Arturia. Stay safe, make more music, and see you soon. Cheers.